Resident Return Visa 155. This is the topic of my discussion today. I'm Babar Yub, an Australian citizen and a licensed immigration consultant of Australia from Migration Call. So what is Resident Return Visa and who can qualify to get this visa and how long you can get this visa for? This is the main topic that I will be covering in our discussion today. So keep watching this video till the end so you know if you are one of those persons who is facing the similar situation, could look at into detail to how to be qualified and how to get this visa. So let's start this discussion. I have been asked by many my clients who already are on permanent residence visa in Australia, and also the clients who have just been granted permanent resident visa and want to come to Australia on that visa, but due to commitment of work, it could be employment, family or business, they somehow could not fulfill the allotted time period. So usually we know that when you are applying for overseas, especially in skilled visa cases, you will get 5-year permanent residency visa. So some of those clients are already doing very good jobs, have a very well settled life, and they just don't want to discontinue their job or discontinue their commitment even if they're doing big enough business. So they probably thinking, okay, I come to Australia and could possibly not live 4 years in order to get my citizenship. So if you can't live 4 years on PR, especially if you have been granted direct PR, you will not get Australian citizenship. Or if you are someone who has already got temporary visa before being granted permanent visa, there is certain time period you have to be on permanent visa in order to get the Australian citizenship. So in those circumstances, when I could not complete my allotted time, what visa can I apply? So the answer is Resident Return Visa 155 or 157, we see it later, is the visa that you need to apply if your time period of your existing permanent resident visa is expired and you want to go overseas, or you are already overseas and you wish to come back to Australia. So there are some conditions that you have to fulfill in order to get this visa. It's not very straightforward visa. So you got to see whether you qualify in one of those so you can apply for this visa, or if you are already planning something ahead, because this video is especially very useful for those who are already planning something ahead, because I have experienced my clients who are already planning something ahead. They are a bit confused because they think that they could not fulfill the time period which was allowed because of their overseas commitment. What they need to do, they may know that they could apply for Resident Return Visa 155, but still they are not very clear that what are the conditions that they have to fulfill. So if you are planning and or in a certain situation, you got to look the criteria set for in order to get the Resident Return Visa. So I look into detail as always from a credible source. So what is the best credible source that we all can look for? It's Australian immigration website, which is immi.gov.au. So I will go into the Australian immigration website and explain you the resident return visa conditions and different scenarios that could be applicable to you. So you look at yourself and cross check it. The another very important thing is, instead of listening to different other people and still left alone confused, you should also you could instead you could cross check all the information from there and see that is it correct, and also are they applicable to you. So in let's start from the Australian immigration website, our this topic, so everything could be clear to you. Now I am on to the Australian immigration website. You can see it here. It's immi.gov.au, and you can see I am on to the visa subclass 155 and 157. Says resident return visa, and if you read the heading, it says if you leave Australia after your travel validity expires, or it expires when you are outside Australia, you will not be able to return to Australia as a permanent resident. This visa allows you to return as a permanent resident. So as I said early on in my discussion, if you are already outside of Australia, or your visa is already permanent visa is already expired, and you want to travel and you want to come back to Australia, you need this visa. All right. So let's look into detail what is this visa is for. So when we see in the middle, when you have this visa, what you can do with this visa, you can travel in and out of Australia as many times as you want until the travel validity expires. All right. So it's clear that once the travel, like whatever the time period this visa allows you, you can travel back and forth. But once it expires, you cannot. Usually have a travel facility up to 5 years, depending on your circumstances. So we see these circumstances. What are those circumstances? It allows you up to 5 years, but that's the maximum time period allow, which get in only in one situation. I will explain you later. So when we look at on the right screen, so you must be either. So what you could be before you get this visa, an Australian permanent resident, a former Australian permanent resident whose last permanent visa was not cancelled. So your visa should not be cancelled, obviously, it just expired. So if your visa was cancelled, you're not the right candidate. That's another topic, but we are discussing if your visa is expired today, so let's stick into this, not make it more complicated. Or a former Australian citizen who lost or renounced his Australian citizenship. So similarly, if you have lost your citizenship for some reason, or you have left your Australian citizenship and you want to come back to Australia again, you can also use this visa. Now we are going into the middle part, which is this one, check your eligibility. That's where our main topic is gonna be, like who is the person who can qualify for this visa. Let's go there. So again, it's just starting be either like what I've read earlier, an Australian permanent citizen, a former Australian permanent resident whose last permanent visa are not cancelled, same thing I just explained you, or former Australian citizen, right? So, and one more thing, a good thing about this visa, age requirement. There are no age requirements for this visa. So whatever age you have right now, you can still qualify for this visa. Okay, so that's very good. Like now we are the main topic, meet our residence or substantial tie requirement. This is the main topic where you get all this information. So let's look into detail. So they have put some conditions. So who is the person could get this visa? We read this condition, and let's see if you are one of those person who could meet this condition. Obviously then you can go for this visa. So there is different scenarios, they are already there for you to make it easier. Let's start. It says meet our residence, first part, or this or is very important, or substantial ties requirement. So in some cases you need to just meet residence requirement, like how long you've been living. In other cases you show that you have some ties as well in Australia. So what are those? Let's go in there. You must either have been present in Australia for 2 years in the last 5 years as the holder of a permanent visa, right? So if you are someone who have been granted a 5-year permanent visa and you have lived 2 years on that visa, you could qualify for this visa. So this is our residence, meet our residence. So you here they're just asking you to prove your residence status, right? Nothing else, no substantial ties. And further, or as an Australian citizen, similarly, in which case you will get 5-year travel facility. So that means you will get resident return visa 155 for 5 years. I just make it easier for you just to give you an example. Okay, example. My client, let's suppose if you are one of my client, Mr. Adam, okay, he was granted PR, permanent resident 190, on 10th January. Pardon if I get some mistakes while I'm typing, because I just need to cover this topic. 10 January 2020, okay, and this visa is expired on 9th January 2025. So that was a PR 190. Mr. Admin was granted, or let's suppose 189, whatever, and the visa was granted on 10th January 2020 and expired on 9th January 2025. So the visa was good for 5 years. All right. Now he has traveled to Australia 3 times and came back to his home country or any country that he is residing to work. The total time period he has spent in Australia in between those 5 years is 2.5 years. Okay, so Mr. Adam was granted 5-year PR, okay, and he has traveled to Australia on the PR and lived in Australia for only 2.5 years, but now his visa is expired. Now he wants to apply for the visa. So which visa he is going to apply for? Resident return visa, and this visa will be of 5 years. So he will get a 5 years travel facility. And in here I'm again emphasizing the criteria is only residential, like you have got to be living in Australia for more than 2 years. So as he lived more than 2.5 years, he will be getting 5 years visa. Okay, so again the point is in the last 5 years. So let's suppose another very important, last 5 years the visa, then he decided that he applies on this visa, let's suppose on 1st January 2025. So that's the last 5, because his visa was about to expire. So he applied first June on 1st June 2025. He applied for resident return visa. So in the last 5 years, he just lived 2.5 years, as I explained you, and now he wants to apply for the resident return visa on 1st January, because he knows that his visa expiring on 9th January. So he will get 5 years visa, because in the last 5 years that he was granted, he came to Australia and 3 times and just spent 2.5 years altogether. So he's the perfect candidate to get resident return visa 155, which will be for 5 years. Okay, this is the first scenario. Okay, now all other scenarios, basically there are 3 more scenarios just I discuss here. Here in all those 3 scenarios, you will only get maximum 12 months, 1 year, right? You can see or. In all those 3 conditions or scenarios, you will get maximum 12 months. Like you will getting maximum 1 year travel facility, or 1 year resident return visa 555. So only this condition that I have explained you get 5 years resident return visa. In all other 3 conditions, scenarios, you will be getting 1 year. So let's start with this one. So in this condition, he says a scenario, you are already outside of Australia. Let's suppose you are already in Australia, and another, you are not absent for 5 continuous year or more before the date of application. So let's suppose you are not absent for more than 5 years, okay, and hold a permanent visa or last left Australia as, like, you still be holding a permanent visa or last left Australia as a permanent resident or citizen, and be able to demonstrate, and not only that, and be able to demonstrate substantial ties to Australia that are of benefit to Australia. Now, this is very important. Now, another thing, in order to get this 12 months visa, if you have not lived in Australia for 2 years in the last 5 years, you have to prove substantial ties. Let's look at the example of Adam again. He was granted this visa expiring on this date. Now we see he just lived in Australia. We just changed the situation to 1.5 years. So all that time period that he had this visa, he was short of 2 years. So the residence criteria he did not fulfill, because he did not live 2 years, which was asked for. So now he can only apply for 1 year visa, and with that he also needs to prove substantial ties. Okay, substantial ties criteria. So he was put on substantial, like lived for 1.5 years. Okay, that's the residency criteria, because in the last 5 years he lived 1.5 years, which he is fulfilling the criteria in the last 5 years, but he has to show substantial ties. Okay, this substantial ties, if you go down, it's right here, have substantial ties. So it's explained further. What could that be? Substantial ties. Your ties must be both substantial, one thing, and of benefit to Australia. So you just don't need a substantial ties, that should also be benefit to Australia as well. What could be those ties? 1, business ties. It could be business, cultural ties, employment ties, or personal ties. Okay, business ties. Let's suppose you own a shop in Australia, a barber shop, okay, and or a beauty salon. I'll just give you an example, or a takeaway shop. Let's suppose, and you have already employed 2 or 3 Australian permanent resident or citizens. So that's a business ties that you have showed and that you have with Australia. So that is of Australian benefit because your business has given job to Australia. So you have substantial ties as well as the benefit to Australia. Cultural ties. Okay, now cultural tie means let's suppose you are a famous musician or artist. Okay, and you have a famous organization running here, or one of the organization is running here, and you are visiting that organization quite often, and that is quite reputable and is performing different on different scenarios. It's well known. Obviously, it's of benefit to Australia. So that's a cultural ties. Employment ties. Employment ties again. That's you have a job, okay, and that is of benefit to Australia. And or your employee where you can prove like, okay, that could be benefit when you're representing overseas or you're not in Australia. It was benefit to Australia. So that's employment ties. So employment ties could be one of those as well. Personal ties, including family. Personal ties you could show, obviously you have kids and they are, let's suppose, under 18 and they are left without father if I don't go there. So obviously that's benefit to Australia if Australian citizen or permanent resident children are without father, and obviously that's your substantial ties as well. It's benefits to Australia in a way because your children are Australian, right? So this is substantial ties. Coming back to my thing, so if you can prove all those, if you have lived less than 2 years, then you will only be getting 1 year resident return visa. Okay, all right. And similar, they all three I said are there are two more conditions, scenarios where you also be getting similarly 1 year visa. So what are those? Another one, be outside. Before we also seen you are already outside. Now we see here you are already outside Australia and were an Australian citizen or permanent resident less than 10 years. So let's suppose you had I put this another scenario, Mr. Khalid, let's suppose Mr. Khalid, he was, do we see this here? So less than 10 years. He was granted 189 visa on 10th June 2018. Okay, and expired on 9 June 2023. Okay, so this is the time period 2018-2023. So it's more than 3 years now. Okay, or let's suppose if we go further, in this case probably I should make it easier to 2015, okay, and 2020. So today, let's forgot to give today's date. Let's go today 20th February 2026. This is the date today, 20th February 2026. Okay, so he was granted 189 visa on 10th June 2015 and was expired on 9th June 2020. He just lived less than 2 years time period, and you can see from it's been more than 5 years already. Okay, so now I'm talking about the third condition. So it's already more than 5 years, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So this is 26. So more than 5 years is expired, but it's less than 10 years. Okay, and it's saying not absent from Australia for period that total more than 5 years. So if he was absent less than 5 years before, he could not fulfill the criteria. So the visa, let's suppose in this we change the situation, make it 2017 and expired on 2022, and he left Australia on 1st June 2022. Okay, so just few days before his visa was expired, he left Australia. So that means he left Australia just 3.5 or 4 years back. That means though his visa was first condition fulfilling within 5 years, and also he was not absent from Australia for more than 5 years, so he is okay for this visa too. Okay, again same condition is applicable to him. Be able to demonstrate substantial ties to Australia that are of benefit to Australia. I've already explained you what are the substantial ties: business ties, cultural ties, employment ties, or personal ties. Okay. So these two scenarios, the difference between these two is not absent more than 5 years from Australia from date of application. So the date that he is lodging the application, he should not be absent for more than 5 years. Okay. And here again, the other thing is he should not have not more than 10 years. Okay. And here he should not be absent for more than 5 years. So more or less is the same, just a minor difference. In both cases you will be getting 12 years travel facility, and in both cases you have to demonstrate substantial ties. And again, this is when you are outside Australia. Now the fourth one, be in Australia. This is now the fourth one. If you are in Australia, be able to demonstrate substantial ties to Australia that are of benefit to Australia. This is the first condition. So this is not a residential condition. Be able to demonstrate substantial ties. What are those ties? I've already explained you. It's right there on the bottom of this thing. You can also have a look and check it with my example too. Plus, because it says and not been absent for 5 continuous years since grant of your most recent permanent visa, or when you stop being an Australian citizen, in whichever case. So not been absent for, let's suppose now I give you the third example. Mr. James, he was granted 190 visa, which is PR, on 10th March 2021 and expired on 9 March 2026. Okay, he only lived for 1 year in Australia, but he is in Australia now. He's not outside Australia. Okay, so before I give you example for someone who's already outside Australia. Now he is in Australia. So if he is in Australia, this is important. What he needs to prove? He needs to prove he has substantial ties. What are substantial ties? I have already given you example and explained you what are those. Plus, he should not be, what is saying?
not been absent for 5 continuous years since grant of your most recent permanent visa. So he was granted permanent resident visa on 10 March 2025. So when, let's suppose he's applying for this visa, he's applying for resident return visa 155 on 9th March, okay, 2006. So here, when he's applying for resident return, and he's already in Australia, but they see from 9 March to 10th March 2022, the period should not be more than 5 years. Let's suppose he was on another visa or something. We can give so many examples, but it will make things more confused. So within last 5 years, he was not absent in the last 5 years. So he was not absent from Australia. So if someone was granted 10 March and arrived Australia on, let's suppose, 1st March 2026, can he apply for this visa? Yes, he can, because he was not absent in the last 5 years, right? But that's not only thing. He has to prove he has substantial ties, as I explained you. So if he's someone who's in Australia but has not been absent for more than 5 years since grant of your most recent visa. Let's suppose he was granted this visa on this one, and he just was absent for more than 5 years. After that, he was traveling on another on bridging visa. Let's suppose he went overseas on a bridging visa, applied for any other visa. Let's not complicate this. But if the permanent visa was more than 5 years old since he has traveled to Australia, then he will not be granted this one. So that concludes our discussion. Okay, so these are the 4 scenarios. There is one more example, but that's for dependent, like for your children or for spouse. That does not cover the topic of our discussion. And one more thing, like I said, I will explain you later. There is another visa, resident return visa, subclass 155 and 157 and 157. So 157 is the visa that will be only granted for 3 months. So here, if we read the definition of 157 visa, the maximum travel facility that can be granted with the subclass 157 PRV is of 3 months. So if you get 5 years visa or 1 year visa, you'll go for 155 visa. But some certain scenarios which is not covered in our topic today, because it makes things very long and complicated, we make it simple for you in order to check all those criteria that you are already fulfilling. Then you apply for 157 visa, and this 157 visa is only for 3 months. So I hope you have got some useful information by seeing all the examples that I have showed you, and even checking it from the immigration website, me.gov.au, where this visa is there for you to understand. Subclass 155 and 157 resident return visa. It says if you leave Australia after your travel validity expires, or it expires when you're out Australia, you'll need to be able to return to Australia as a permanent resident, and this visa allows you to return as a permanent resident. So I conclude my discussion here on the laptop, and that's it. Thank you.
I have covered the topic of our discussion today about the Australian resident return visa 155 and 157. I'm Babar Ayub from Migration Call. I'm an Australian citizen and licensed immigration consultant of Australia. Please don't forget to like and subscribe my channel, and more if you need more clarity and more information about any subject or topic. that relates to Australian visa system, please write a comment or write a question. Once I see that, I hope I can answer you, or I can make more videos, so that will be benefit, not only benefit you, but will also benefit everyone who's watching here. Thank you.